there are many different ways to answer this question, because I think the I and the we are involved in this, who is talking, because on the one hand, I can introduce myself, of course, as a person, and I will do, but on the other hand, I don't think we are single. I think we are the product of our environment, our relatives, our ancestors. So the way I would say I introduce myself is more than as I, we, rather than I only. And as far as I'm concerned, I mean, I grew up in a family where they were not artists. I mean, I don't come from a background with, you know, an environment of intellectual or artist. My father was working in constructions, and and my mother was cleaning houses when she could find jobs, but basically she educated us. On the other hand, without having this sort of intellectual education, I have been at some point trained to be very sensitive to the uncanny environment, the others. For instance, in our family, in our culture, the belief in spirits that actually who haunt us, and in witchcraft, in all spiritual parallel invisible world, still is very strong. And I think that this has opened my mind to a kind of, definitely a curiosity to the invisible. And from this curiosity and sort of interest for the invisible, my mind has very early been open to many others, to the otherness. So I came slowly, to make a long story short, to art through, I would say, on the one hand, school, philosophy, but on the other hand, by training myself in the everyday life of my childhood and teenage time, which was, I was working at the side of the school in the market to get some money. I was like I've got still some pictures when I was going down the building in the banlieue where we were living in Garges-les-Gonesse, and I remember that I was always like fascinated by those signs that were in front of the doors of each apartment. Each apartment, Jews, Muslim, Hindu, has religious signs. On the floor, the Hindus has kind of mantras. Of course, they were stickers, but they were representing mantras. The Muslim had this Fatiha on the door. The Jews had the mezuzah in front of the door. I think it has opened my mind to definitely to the other. I mean, and also it was a time where the community were living all together without this kind of problem that we face today. So, if I would say that at some point I have been, and here I have to say we, I've been oppressed, it's definitely that I just told you a small part of the journey that brought me here in front of you. Actually, the journey has been much longer and started in Algeria. It started with my ancestors, and basically, I can speak about this today, but I didn't know when I was growing that this journey, which brought my parents to France because of misery, they were living in Algeria after the independence, because the country was completely bankrupt by colonialism. I didn't know that this journey was longer and was part of a history of humiliation, repression, dispossession, colonialism. I got it quite, I would say, recently, if I may to say so, like 5 years ago, when I read the book of psychoanalyst Karima Lazali, Algerian, and she became a friend, and Karima has been working so much on the, as a psychoanalyst, on this unthought of colonialism, all these blind spots of colonialism. So for me, this to answer your question about oppression, for me, I cannot separate myself from the we, because I think I am the product of this pain. I think we are all the product of the pain that has been caused to our ancestor. I mean, the closest one, the family, but also the community. And to finish with talking about privilege, which sounds, of course, important, because I also have this philosophy of understand. I mean, what also probably gave me the power to stand up and stand against this oppression was to see the other side of the coins, you know, the flip side of the coins. And I think that, on the other hand, what I was telling you before, the fact that this family and community I come from has been cultivating, and still they are a strong relation with the world of the invisible, the ancestor, our grandmother who is visiting us by night in our dreams. It's all this relation we have with the invisible. I think this is a privilege. I think until today, it helped me very much to feel that I'm not alone. That's why I want to say the we, but at the same time, that maybe growing up in this community has given me and us the gift of having something substantially, having an extra that someone who has not grown up in this environment do not have, and therefore miss that connection with another possibility of existence. And I'm very, I think this is a privilege, definitely. This is really like this helped me to I've been working very much with people who have mental illnesses, and I really discovered that by the way, I also did a project on this, which is called the series of film Rhythms Oxymoron. The fact that the very narrow space which exists between reality and virtuality, I'm not talking about technology, but about beliefs, is an efficient privilege to be able to face the injuries of repression, of political repression, of economical repression, of basically of this unfair history and this incapacity in which these repressive regimes, I'm thinking here of course about capitalism and colonialism and imperialism, has putting us into it. And because this is the purpose, but we will speak about this after, I also think that the way that patriarchy has been and still is working is also a repressive regime of capitalism and imperialism that, they are intertwined, that actually, because I witness it with my eyes, that actually could be also engaged through spiritual beliefs in a parallel world. For instance, I've seen so many sisters like suffering from not being able to emancipate themselves in our community, using parallel pathways to for instance, to question their grandmother, their ancestors, to just escape from this patriarchy. And because all the community, even also the men, of course, are scared also by these genes and spirits, and it has been many times the possibility to escape the patriarchat. But we can elaborate this later. I think that this question about from where I'm speaking is very important indeed, because also I think today we need to remember when it's, I mean, from again my perspective, our community, it started in Algeria in the 70s by Algerian feminists who, like Wassila Tamzali, etc., were defining themselves as feminists from the south because they were speaking from a particular location. I think it's important to mention this because I think the last years, particularly thanks to La Colonie that has been running 5 years, I have discovered that the locus, the location from where you speak, actually it's up to you. It's not something that is given to you because you white French or Algerian, or it's, as far as I'm concerned, again, I do believe that it's up to you and you have to build it. It's not a gift that someone gives you because you were born in this place and then you speak from this position, and therefore you have we have to take for granted that you are speaking from this position. Why I am saying this? I'm saying this because I think the whole stake of this location from where we speak is actually defining the resistance against imperialism and coloniality. Because though in the end, the power of imperialism and colonialism started from a discourse, a statement which emerged at the 17th, 18th century with what we have called the century of enlightenment, in a conception that was Eurocentralized, white, male, heterosexual, and defining the rest of humanity by colors, religions, size, whatever, but never, ever, ever mentioning the white man. Universalism is a conception that pretends that we are all together because we are different, but at the same time, the assertion that the one who is enunciating this statement on the rest of the world is not naming itself. The white man has never named itself, which means that it has abstractized the location from where it was speaking and defining and describing the rest of humanity. And I think this is a big problem, because by erasing the locus from where this statement has been invented, it has given the power of the abstraction, the power of the invisibility. It is a regime of invisibility of the one who is enunciating who is what, woman, Jew, Muslim, Asian, black, whatever, never white man. That's why some white folks cannot stand the fact that we said white, and then they tell you are racist, you reversed this is reverse racism. It's not reverse racism. It's just like the missing piece of the puzzle that I think it's basically the keystone of how to address the problematic of coloniality. And as far as I'm concerned, to define from where I'm speaking, I'm not doing it from my origin. Like, okay, I'm Franco-Algerian, born from two Algerian parents. I have both passports. I'm binational, Algerian and French. It's not about that. I'm speaking from a position that doesn't want to be abstract. And that's the biggest problem of artists in contemporary art today, who are playing with this gaze of abstraction. Because producing abstract art, not necessarily abstract art, sorry. I would like to correct myself here. I would prefer to say abstracting their political position is actually a problem. Because abstracting your political position, you actually erase the location from where you speak to just benefit the privilege of not being discovered and confronted to the deliberative space that we call democracy. And that's, and also, of course, many other privileges that I don't want to comment here. It's not the purpose of this interview. But I think, for me, it's extremely important that artists, cultural actors, if they want to make the culture a place where the collective individuation of the society is possible, position themselves by clearly defining from where they are speaking. And for me, the position from where you are speaking needs an assertion of your political position. That's really crucial. Otherwise, you actually hyper-visibilize the one who are positioning themselves and invisibilize yourself, and therefore this is a position of privilege that makes the other weaker. More subject to attack, cancellation, or whatever. And there are two. The people who will listen to me could imagine which kind of position I'm speaking about. But I think that we cannot be decolonial without having a political assertion of what we think. We cannot be decolonial by just reproducing the sort of current verbiage that has been running the last 10 years with a superficial concept of decolonial, decolonial dinners or whatever, without being clearly in dialogue with the evolution of the society we are living in now. And the society we are living in now has changed so much the last 2 years, but the last 5 years, the last 10 years, the last 20 years. So that's why the position from where you speak, for me, it's a statement, and it's a statement that you have to assert as an artist and as a curator, I think, too. In the sense that too much of abstractions of this position is actually killing the relevance of the space, the deliberative space of culture at large. I think that, I've always been, of course, caring about the others, and I don't think it's personal. I think here is also, this we I was speaking before is back again. I've always felt that I'm not alone. I like this sentence in Arabic that says, in Berber, not Arabic, that says one hand doesn't make noise, you need two hands. So we are never alone, And that's why for me to address to the audience, it's like the sort of implementation of your political statement. If you stay alone in your studio by making your art, I mean, I like to work at the studio. I really like, but I think what I like at the studio is the silence of the studio. I really like to be, by the way, after the Biennale, now I'm back to the studio, I'm back to the silence of the studio, and in terms of, it's totally different than working with the others. Could it be the community, your relative, or the people you don't know? It's for me. These are two different form of, I would say, dialogue. On the one hand, you are in something very, very intimate, still questioning, and on the other hand, you are part of a whole. You are just one piece of a whole structure. And if we think about the idea that we are commenting today, could it be feminism or decolonial feminism, for instance, or decolonial ecology, the relation, the way we need to unlearn from these certainties that have been running the world until now and reinvent it. It's something we cannot do. It doesn't make sense to do it alone. I think you need to really understand that to incarnate a project, you have to incarnate it at large. And for me, probably that's the reason I created La Colonie many years ago. Because there is a moment where being an artist alone in your studio, for me it's and confronted to the silence, for the good and the bad also. Sometimes it's depressing, the silence. Is actually very different than, let's say, being personally, emotionally sensitive to the problem of our society, of our world. This is a collective feeling. I really also connect this to ecology, I have to say, because for me, the human society, human groups are ecologies also. They are environment, psychological environment. So there's not only the natural environment. So that for me, I'm really sensitive to both, in the sense that I could definitely address. I really find this need and this importance to address the society, the problem of our society collectively, because we talk about environments. We don't talk about individual. We talk about collective. And that's why I was saying that this brought me to create La Colonie. I was very tired after 9/11 of how much the society was still, particularly in France, was still like living like denying that we live in a society that is a global villages society. It's an the world is this archipelago in the glissantien concept. And for me, La Colonie was the possibility to create a space to meet, not necessarily for symposium or interesting and theoretical thing, but also to dance, to meet, where all kind of people, transgenders, racialized people, white, black, Arabs, whatever, Jews, I don't know, just want to meet people. And we had this combination. There were parties, unbelievable parties, but there were also incredible exhibitions and symposiums. And I think also that it's part if I would connect, because you interview me with one of the aspect of that really like okay, I mean to what I care a lot. I mean, I would say I really believe that with the community, what actually define us together in a moment is emotion. And that's why from that could be, I would say, what binds my artistic individual from the silence of the studio to the collective. How the field of emotion is actually one of the most important political stake of our time, because human groups have been actually forever run by emotion, forever. That's why art care is important. I'm thinking here about music, about poetry, about painting, it's not only about cinema, it's not only what we know as art and contemporary art, you know, painting, sculptures, drawings. You have also all this capacity that some people have to actually galvanize a crowd with their voice, with their music, with their colors. And at the same time, we have been watching, and sadly, that since the end of the 90s, with the first was Berlusconi, and then Bush, etc., and then 9/11, how politicians have took over again this field of emotion, using fake news, using very aggressive discourse, and we are completely in it now with social media, etc. So I think that if I would create, I would make one link between how I'm trying to address and why and to whom I'm trying to address as an artist, and also as a curator, because when I was working on the curating for the Biennale, I also definitely cared about this very subtle, very imperceptible moment that actually we could call the present, which is the conscious present, which could be activated through emotion. Is actually the field of emotion. It's definitely the field of emotion. And when you have in a debate people who are arguing, and one is like boo by the audience, and you are here to moderate, say no, okay, you don't like what you say, I don't like it either, but he has the right to speak. So give him the mic. It creates something. It creates something. I mean, at La Colonie we had moments of emotion which were, I mean, in our, I'm speaking here now about the symposiums and the conferences, which were very strong, very, very strong. And so, yeah, I don't know to whom I'm addressing, because I don't know the audience. We are not, I mean, musicians, artists are meeting sometimes their audience in openings, vernissage, but it's not like a musician who has the audience in front of him in live, which is where I think I'm a bit jealous. If you think about, I don't know, Freddie Mercury in Wembley is just unbelievable. This is the field of emotion. So, but I don't know to whom I'm addressing this, but what I'm sure is that to address something at large, the field of emotion is one of the way, is one of the virtual space you have to care about to actually speak, to actually generate this, to federate the audience, and to and then to generate the argumentation, the conversation, and the deliberative space where the debate exists. I mean, I could say, of course, yes, because it's. I don't think that we could not be feminist. It's something I can't imagine. I think many people are feminists without knowing it. But let me elaborate a little bit about this, because I think there are many feminisms. It's probably endless. Of course, again, going back from the other question that was asking from which position are you speaking, I have to evoke this position to answer the question of feminism. Because for me, again, there is a political, political angle from which we have to answer this question. Because, and again, as far as I'm concerned, through my history, our ancestors, the way that Algerian women have been struggling against colonialism, involved in the revolution, tortured like Jamila Boupasha, etc. She was defended by Gisèle Halimi. I mean, my mind is cannot actually avoid these references in terms of feminism, in the sense that there have been through my education, I'm speaking here about intellectual education, when I was studying philosophy at the age of 1920, in a kind of, not opposition, because I come from a family where my mother is very feminist. We had 2 sisters elder and 5 boys, among which I was. So let's say, my father was always working or not even here. We were like ruled by 3 women. And my mother has always been strongly on the side of women. Still she is. But there was a very strong difference, again, at this moment, between the narrative I was listening at home and the philosophy, the French philosophy I was studying at the University Saint-Denis. Reference, first time I heard about feminism at that time was Olympe de Gouges. So it was something for me completely incoherent. And when I got at home that my grandmother, Imuna, was also Mujahidat, so it means she was resistant against the French during the colonial. She was hiding weapons. She had a weapon. There was something that I found kind of invisibilized in the philosophical education I got, and the first references like de Gouges, etc. That's why I was very happy to read the book by Gisèle Halimi and Simone de Beauvoir, Jamila, because for me it was then that there was another form of feminism which was attacking the depolitization of the gender by the colonial state. That's why, for instance, the rape of Jamila Boupasha has never been mentioned as a rape in the French newspaper Le Monde. This was the fight of Gisèle Halimi. No? She said, no, you have to write a rape here, because they said she has been raped with, she has been raped by a French soldier with a bottle of beer in her vagina, and Gisèle Halimi wanted to write this in the newspaper Le Monde, and Beuve-Méry, I think at that time, said, no, we cannot write that. So they put a bottle on her belly, which is not the same. And Gisèle Halimi wrote this famous paper saying that this is a depolitization of the gender. So invisibilizing the crime, using the rape as a mass weapon against population. I mean, it has been, there is a lot of reference. I think this is important. So for me, to be feminist, it's not only to say, okay, I'm a feminist, particularly from the position where I'm speaking, without meaning clearly that you have to include this in a political agenda, in a political statement. Being feminist for me is a political position from where you position yourself. And you said, I'm feminist because I want that these things change politically. And that's why I was referring right now to the gauche and this tendency of feminism that I sadly witness in France sometimes by feminists who pretend to be feminists and are, for instance, Islamophobic, clearly against women who have the hijab. I'm not saying that I'm supporting hijab, it's not about this, you know. People who know me say that I'm not also, I'm much more like Marxist. But, I mean, it's insane that in this country, when a mother wants to go to the swimming pool with her daughter or kids, because she has the hijab, she cannot go to the school. Even the teachers are complaining because without hijab woman, there's nobody. So why I'm speaking about this now, because I think I don't want to stay also in the 60s. I mean, there's a struggle of feminism today that has, I think, some blind spot. And I'm not saying that all, I'm not blaming all white feminists, no? But I think that there's a fringe or a kind of tendency there's a lack of or there is maybe too much. There's sometimes by feminists who manipulate the feminism politically. Particularly, we can see this today in the French far left. I mean, I'm speaking about here Sandrine Rousseau, people like this, or like sometimes using in a very excessive way the term feminism by defending ideas that bother me a lot. For instance, the question of the hijab, for me, it's a real problem because even me, I should not speak about this because I'm not a woman, I don't wear the hijab, but I'm speaking about this because I have my two sisters-in-law, my family have wearing the hijab. And I think there's an incredible problem in France to understand that we have to get rid of this theory of the big replacement and understand that a society change. It's just a society that is changing, but these people are French. And there's the obsession that this society have to speak on behalf of the others about whether they want to have the veil or not. It's something that bothers me. Again, I would even rather that someone like my sister, Samra would speak about this instead of me, because she said, but I wear the hijab because I want it. So that's why the question of feminism for me has to be clearly, as far as I'm concerned, spoken from a position that is actually decolonial. And Françoise Vergès, with her book Un féminisme décolonial, I think she really nailed it, because there is the majority of the problem that I'm binding to a certain feminism, not all, I think have been conceptualized and also practiced during colonialism. Colonialism, Algeria was the laboratory of what is happening in the banlieue today. So to decolonize feminism would mean to try to bind the repression against racialized and women, and in order to because they come from a time they are like the legacy of colonialism, which has basically continued today. There was this, and there was another thing that I wanted to answer, but I think to really sum up, I would say that for me, being feminist means to think that politically, you can be feminist only politically. This is what I think, and when I'm saying that is that I think the state, the colonial state or the coloniality is actually depoliticizing the gender in order to control the society, and that's why I think the question of feminism for me is very much bound to a political consciousness. However, you're white, you're non-white, you're a man, you're a woman, you something else, you transgenders, do not define yourself neither as a woman nor as a man. You define yourself by what you want to define. But I think what we have to keep in mind, and this is very important, is to care about the political tool that is feminism, to change the society. And that's why all tendencies like ecofeminism for me are important, because they're like really like using feminism as a tool to change and to improve the society.